It's a cold November evening in 1989. Pine Creek is a quiet, small, forested town in northern Oregon. Everyone knows each other. The mailman follows the same route every day, and kids ride their bikes home after school. At night, a forest-scented fog settles over the town, so quiet that only the distant hooting of an owl can be heard. Pine Creek has never had a major crime. No one remembers a murder here. But that November evening, everything changed. It all started out as a simple affair. The Miller's Diner in the center of town was filled with a few customers, as usual for the evening. The local sheriff, Thomas Rayt, took a sip of his hot coffee and looked out the window. It wasn't snowing, but it was cold. Outside, the sound of an old Ford engine could be heard. Someone had pulled up. The door to the cafe opened, and Randy Nolan, a 20-year-old forestry worker, walked in. He greeted her with his usual smile, but today his eyes were troubled. He approached the sheriff and whispered, "Mr. Rayt, I found something on the forest road. It looks like a man." The sheriff thought it was a joke at first, but Randy was serious. As he illuminated the road in the dark, he saw a truck parked among the old logs and someone lying next to it. He was afraid to go any closer, so he wrote down the license plate. Rayt immediately stood up, put his coffee on the table, and said, "Hush, don't tell anyone." He got up, grabbed his keys, and got into his police car. The forest road was dark. The wind blowing through the thick spruce trees played with the headlights of the car. Randy led the way, and the sheriff drove in silence. Finally, the headlights of the car illuminated something in the darkness. Yes, there was a truck. An old Chevy, its doors open, no one inside. And next to it lay a body covered in snow. Rayt slowly got out and turned on the light. Under the snow was the body of a woman, frozen. Her hair was matted with snow, and the blood on her face was frozen in the snow. Next to her lay a small bag, frozen from the cold, with several pictures and a key inside. The picture showed a woman hugging a man, and on the back was written, "Me and Ben, summer 1988. The sheriff immediately called the center. "This is a murder. Send an investigator immediately." This was terrible news for Pine Creek. By morning, the whole town was talking about it. The local radio also heard. "Unknown female body found on Forest Road." No one recognized her. No one had ever seen a woman like this in Pine Creek. The next day, Detective Melinda Hart arrived. She was an experienced woman who had been called in from Portland. At first glance, it was clear that this was no ordinary murder. She examined the body, strangled, then dragged from the car. There were footprints next to it, those of an older man. Another, smaller one, as if someone had run away. Melinda shook her head. Someone knew this woman. This is not a coincidence. And the townspeople began to fear. At night, the windows were closed, and the children were ordered not to go outside. People gathered quietly in front of the cafe, whispering to each other. Maybe she was just a passenger? No, someone stopped her here. 3 days passed. The local newspaper came out. The body found on the forest road in Pine Creek has not yet been identified. But something else happened that night. Wilson, a farmer who lived by a lake outside the city, woke up at night to the sound of his dog howling. He looked out the window and saw someone walking along the forest road with a flashlight. He thought it must be the sheriff. But in the morning, something else was found on the same road. A piece of bloody cloth wrapped in metal. Hair strands came out of it. Melinda sent the cloth to the lab, and the results came back the same day. It was the woman. So the criminal had returned. Rayt looked at Melinda in the evening at the cafe and said, "This man is still around. He's watching us." Melinda fell silent, only saying, "I think so too." Meanwhile, the first anonymous call came to the phone in the city center. A low voice, a man's, "If you find the woman in Pine Creek, you'll find the man. He's not finished yet." The sheriff tried to answer, but the connection was cut off. It was impossible to determine where the call had come from. That night, Melinda was staying at her father's house when there was a knock on the door. She looked out the window. No one was there. All she could hear was the sound of someone walking in the woods. An owl flew by, and in the night, in the distance, she could hear the sound of a motor. Melinda put a notebook on the table and wrote in it, "This man is testing us. He chooses Pine Creek because it's quiet. No one comes, no one goes. He feels safe." That night, the lake froze. In the morning, someone's footprints were found on the ice, and between the footprints lay a small metal object. The object was an earring from a woman who had disappeared a few months earlier. Pine Creek. As dawn broke, a thick fog rolled over Pine Creek. The forest was silent. Only a few crows could be heard in the distance. The police cars were heading for the lake. The tracks were clearly visible on the snow and ice where the earring had been found. Melinda bent down and studied the tracks carefully. The man must have been heavy, with broad shoulders. The tracks went all the way to the middle of the lake and disappeared. It was as if he had fallen under the ice. Sheriff Rayt stood silent, his hands in his pockets. His face was tired and restless. These events were too much for a place like Pine Creek. "Melinda, this man is one step ahead of us," he said quietly. "No, he's leaving a trail behind. We'll find him," Melinda said firmly. The lab results came back. The blood on the earring did not belong to the first woman. So someone else was injured or missing. The town was shaken again. The local newspaper headline read, "Another bloody discovery in Pine Creek. Is the killer back?" That evening, Miller's diner was almost empty. Only 2 people were sitting there, the local forester and the mailman. The news on TV was constantly repeating the same story. It was snowing outside. Then the door of the cafe opened. A young woman came in, her head covered in snow, her eyes wide with fear. She could not catch her breath and whispered softly, "He's watching me." The sheriff calmed her down, gave her water. The girl's name was Laura. She lived on a farm 10 miles from Pine Creek. She said that when she left the house at night to call her dog, someone called her in the woods. And at that moment, a lantern was lit behind a tree. "I ran, but he followed me. I could hear his footsteps," the girl said. Melinda asked her, "Did you see his face?" Laura shook her head. "No, but he was a man. He was breathing hard, like he was drinking ice-cold air." Melinda immediately looked at the sheriff and said, "He's back. He's choosing this place." The sheriff took a deep breath and said, "So, he's from Pine Creek." The next day, a patrol car was set up around Laura's house. A police car was parked far away. But the night passed quietly. No one came. Only at 3 a.m. did the dog start barking again. Melinda looked out the window. Someone's flashlight shone for a moment in the distance, in the woods, and then went out. She didn't sleep until morning. In the morning, they checked the forest path. There were tracks again. A man's shoe print, a small metal object next to it, a watch. Engraved on the back, BR 1986. Sheriff Rayt saw the watch and fell silent. "That's mine," he said quietly. "I lost it once, 4 years ago." Melinda stared at him. "So he knows you?" Rayt turned his face away, remembering something. 4 years ago, he had worked on a criminal who had just left Pine Creek, an ex-con named Ben Rileman. He had been hiding on the back roads, robbing people, but he had never killed anyone. He had finally been caught, but he had escaped from prison 2 years earlier. Melinda looked at her notebook, then said quietly, "Ben Rileman. Is that the Ben in the picture?" Rayt nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I know her. That woman was with the one in the picture. It's something from their past." The detectives went to an old cabin outside the city, where Rilmond used to live. There was no one inside, but there was a collage of newspaper pages and pictures pinned to the wall. all of them of Pine Creek residents. In the center were pictures of Melinda and Sheriff Rayt. At the bottom, written in red marker, were the words, "You haven't forgotten me." Melinda took a deep breath. This man is playing his game. He knows our every move. As they were leaving, they found an old recorder behind the door. They pressed a button. A metallic sound was heard. A male voice. "I've been watching you. The forest is silent, but I'm walking through it. Every window, every lantern is a path for me. Melinda, you can't find me. I'm right behind you." The sound faded. Rayt held the recorder in his hand. At that moment, the snow outside was getting heavier. The wind was shaking the house. That night, fog settled over Pine Creek again. The electric lights went out. The cafe, the police station, and the stores were left in darkness. Melinda sat in her car and wrote the last lines in her notebook. "He lives in the woods. He is silent, but he hears us. Pine Creek will never be the same again." At 2:17 a.m., the police received a call from Laura's house. When the car arrived, the window was broken, and no one was inside. Only a note on the table said, "He is mine now." The town is quiet. It's snowing, but no one is out. Behind every window, a light is on. People are calling each other, whispering, "Did you hear? He took someone else." Pine Creek is no longer a quiet town. Fear is on every corner. Suspicion is in every breath. In the police station, Melinda has placed Laura's photo on the desk. She is the second missing woman. Next to her is a photo of the previous victim. They both have something in common: hair color, age, height. "He's selective," Melinda said slowly. "He's selective. They remind him of something." Sheriff Rayt sat quietly, leafing through old papers. "When I caught this guy 4 years ago," he said, "I'm going back because this place is quiet. I thought it was crazy at the time." Melinda looked out the window. The dark forest. The wind was shaking the lanterns. "Rayt," she said, "he's choosing you. You caught him, and now he's going to punish you." At night, Melinda sat in her small hotel room, making notes in a notebook. Every word was careful, every line cold. He made the city his playground. He used the darkness as a weapon. At 1:30 a.m., she heard a sound at the door. It sounded like someone was walking outside. She slowly walked to the window, looked through the curtains. The street was empty. Only snow was falling. But the next moment, someone knocked on the door. She stepped back, holding her breath. The knock was repeated. "Who is it?" she said, but there was no answer. She slowly went and opened the door. No one was there. Only a black envelope lay in front of the door. Inside was an old photo of her, Rayt, and the Pine Creek police team. The back of the photo read, "I saw you. Now you see me." Melinda clutched her heart and closed the envelope. She called Rayt immediately. "He's playing a game with us," she said. Rayt simply sighed. "Yeah, he's trying to lure us into the woods." The next morning, on the forest path, another discovery was made. A small container in the snow, red liquid inside, with a metal sign on the bottom, third. Melinda saw the number and her heart sank. So she had taken another one. People gathered downtown and began to appeal to Melinda. "Why can't you find him? This town is now home to a criminal," one man said. Others were shouting. Melinda looked at them, her voice low but firm. "We will find him, but you guys stay calm. He feeds on your fear." That night, Rayt was going through old files. He read a description of Ben Reelman: cold, observant, quiet, but vindictive. Among the papers, he noticed a piece of paper,
a copy of a letter Reelman had written in prison. "I'm going back, Rayt. This time I'll choose. The woods are quiet, but they're calling me." Rayt immediately called Melinda. "I think he's living in that old cabin in the woods. He doesn't come out, but he's watching everything." They set off at 11 p.m. The forest road was covered in snow, slippery. The lights were shining in the darkness. Finally, they reached the old cabin. Snow on the ground, the door half open. It was cold inside, and there were old pictures on the walls. In the corner, on a table, there were papers with the words, "I wrote this. You read it. Now I'll write you." Melinda slowly approached the table, turned on the lamp. Among the papers were pictures of Laura, a drawing of her house, every window marked. "He planned the surveillance," Melinda said. "Everything was measured." At that moment, a noise was heard from outside. Someone ran through the trees. Rayt immediately drew his gun, shouted, "Stop where you are!" But there was no answer. He ran out, following the tracks in the snow, but the tracks suddenly ended in the forest, as if the man had disappeared into thin air. He came back, his lips trembling. "He's playing on purpose, Melinda," he said. "It's to tire us out." Melinda was silent. She looked out the window at the snowy night. "No, Rayt. He's getting ready. He's planning his final scene, and that's where he's taking us." That night, the wind howled in Pine Creek, rattling the doors. Far away, in the woods, someone laughed softly. The echo of the laughter mingled with the snow and could be heard all over town. In the morning, Laura's brother called the police. "I heard my sister's voice on the forest path last night. She was crying for help. I ran, but all I saw was a man dressed in black." Melinda pushed her hair back and took a deep breath. "He's still holding on. He's waiting for the end of his game. Now we have one chance. We have to find him before he finds us."
Dark clouds were hanging over the town. The air was heavy, oppressive. The people of Pine Creek no longer slept at night. Behind every window was a light, in every heart fear. And the forest road on the outskirts of town had become a place where no one walked, a place where evil lurked. Melinda spent her last night preparing. In front of her was a map. All the disappearances led to one point, an old mining tunnel behind Pine Creek Lake, a place that had been closed for 30 years but still existed. "He's there," she said, looking at Rayt. "He chose this place because it's quiet, deep, and no one comes." Rayt nodded. "What if this is a trap?" Melinda smiled. "He's already led us into his trap, Rayt. Now all that's left is the entrance." At 10:45 they set off. The headlights of the car cut through the darkness, and the wind howled through the forest. The sound of rustling branches could be heard everywhere. When they reached the tunnel, the old iron gate was half open. "He was here," Melinda said quietly. They went inside. The air inside the tunnel was cold, the walls damp. Water dripped with every step. When the flashlight hit the walls, old writings appeared. 1986. Reelman. "You can't find me." Rayt clutched her heart and looked back. "He's watching us." Melinda walked silently, then stopped suddenly. Something glinted ahead. It was a small metal object. She bent down, picked it up. It was Laura's earring. Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. "You're finally here." They turned around. A man emerged from the darkness. His face was in shadow, but his voice was clear, cold, low, quiet, but terrifying. "I've been waiting for you," he said. "Melinda, you found me. And Rayt? He forgot about my debt." Rayt drew his gun. "Reelman, you're not going anywhere this time." The man laughed. "I'm already gone, Sheriff. When you killed me 4 years ago, I was reborn here. This forest is my home."
Melinda walked slowly forward, flashlight in hand. "Where did you take them?" Rilman smiled. "I hid them. They've learned to be quiet. Silence here is eternal." He backed away, deeper into the tunnel. Melinda followed. Rayt followed. The wind rustled on the walls, the water dripped. Suddenly, a dimly lit space opened up, an old mine shaft. In the center, 2 chairs. In one, Laura, unconscious, alive, but tied up. Next to her was the second body, the first woman, cold, motionless. Melinda ran over and checked Laura's pulse. She was alive. At that moment, a voice from behind. "I told you it's not over yet." Rilman appeared behind Rayt. A gunshot rang out. Melinda turned back. Rayt fell. A bullet had hit him in the shoulder, but he was alive. Rilman walked slowly, pointing the gun at Melinda. "You found me, but now it's time to be quiet." Melinda walked slowly back, closer to the wall. Her eyes were sharp, her breathing slow. "You've always listened to the forest, haven't you?" she said. Rilman nodded. "Yes." Melinda said in a low voice, "Then listen to him." He backed away with his left hand and pressed a wooden support on the side wall. The old tunnel mechanism started working. Iron beams creaked and dirt began to fall from the roof above. Rilman tried to back away, but it was too late. He was trapped in the dust and rocks that fell on him. The tunnel shook, the sounds deafening. Melinda untied Laura's rope, pulled right out. They struggled out. The dust settled behind them. The tunnel closed. They sat in silence in the snowy night when they reached the car. Rayt, unable to catch his breath, said softly, "Is this over?" Melinda watched silently. People like him never really go away. He's become a shadow in this forest. The next day, Pine Creek woke up again. The town seemed to be back to normal, but everyone knew this forest would never be the same again. A week later, Melinda parked her car and headed down that lake road. Bird tracks on the ice, a cold stillness in the air. She wrote the last line in her notebook. "Some places live in silence. Pine Creek is one of them. It doesn't give away its secrets to anyone." She got back in her car. She started the engine. But as she drove away, something caught her eye in the rearview mirror for a moment. A shadow among the trees, a familiar silhouette. She turned off the light, looked again. No one was there. Only the snow was falling. The city was silent, but a voice could be heard in the distance on the wind. A low but familiar voice. "I'm here, Melinda."